What's up, Vetters? Patrick here with Vetted. Today's video, we are going to go over some comments made by ex-CIA agent Jim Semivan, who was also a part of To the Stars Academy. He recently sat down with Peter Skafish on a Soul Forum video that they released on YouTube, and Jim said some very interesting things that I would like to cover, basically around the question of, are aliens a threat to us? But before we jump into that conversation, I wanted to do a follow-up on yesterday's video. I'll put a link in the description so you can check out the full thing, but the gist of it is this. Eric Burleson was told by David Grush to go meet with someone, this mysterious person, and he met with this mysterious person, and that mysterious person told him that he speaks to angels and aliens, right? And that it blew his mind. That's according to Representative Eric Burleson from Missouri. And well, people online had basically thought that they had figured out who this mysterious person was that David Grush introduced to Eric Burleson. People thought it was this couple right here.
I am here with
Dr. Desiree Hurtak?
Dr. J.J. Hurtak.
So specifically, Dr. J.J. Hurtak. But I spoke with filmmaker Ron James, who is the Media Relations National Director for MUFON and also a UFO documentarian who released The Accidental Truth a couple years ago and is set to release his newest documentary, The Next Accidental Truth. He reached out to me and said he spoke to J.J. Hurtak, and J.J. Hurtak confirmed it's not him. And in fact, he's never met Grush or Burleson. Now, this is a direct statement from J.J. Hurtak through Ron James. Although Patrick on Vetted put together a great overview of our work, the context is not valid as we were not the ones who know David Grush, nor did he introduce us to Representative Eric Burleson. So, as you can see, J.J. Hurtak is not the one, which means this mysterious figure remains mysterious. Now, many people are saying it could be Dan Burrish or even Chris Bledsoe. So let me know what y'all think in the comments. Now, let's jump to the main point of today's video. Here's Jim Semivan sitting down with Peter Skafish to discuss, are aliens a threat?
I've had it explained to me, again, I don't want to be alarmist about it because I don't think it's a bad thing, or, I don't think it's a good thing or a bad thing. I just think it's just sort of out there. But it's a little bit scary in the sense that what we don't know is that if reality isn't what we think it is, and these people are able to manipulate at least our version of reality to a certain extent, at least, then we have to be concerned about that, because that's the main goal of government, right? Protect its people. Now, have they done that? Well, yeah, if you look at abductions as being real, and I do believe they're real, well, yeah, they have done that to a certain extent, and human rights violations, but it's not been on a scale, they haven't killed anybody, as far as I know. I mean, I don't think there's been any deliberate attacks. So as far as UAP or the phenomenon being an existential threat, no, I don't think that exists at all. I just don't see that.
Don't worry, we're not done with that clip, but I just had to jump in here and address this particular point. I make sure I heard this correctly, right? Jim Semivan admits that there are these alien abductions, but then is like, yeah, it's kind of human rights violation. I mean, they're not really killing anybody, so it's not really that bad, Who cares? A few million people getting abducted, against their will, forcefully. But hey, they're not a threat. What? Let's imagine a scenario. A suburban neighborhood, right? Beautiful homes, white picket fences, people out mowing their lawns, 2.5 dogs running around, perfect ice cream truck going by, you know what I mean? Mrs. Johnson, next door neighbor, bringing over fresh apple pie to the new neighbors. Now, nightfall comes. And all of a sudden, half the neighborhood just gets abducted. Are you going to consider the people that took them a threat? Yeah, you are.
I think the most we can say about them is, they're indifferent, to maybe us, and that there's there's a leitmotif of trickery and deceit that runs through their communications with us. And if you look at abduction experiences in general and what these beings, when they meet people, have contact experiences with them, what they tell the people, the contactees, not always true, not always correct.
So again, trickery and deceit. They abduct people, but yeah, they're not a threat. Don't worry about it. What are we talking about here?
Or they have the contactees contact somebody else and say, this is going to happen. And of course, never happens. It's like apocalypticism, right? These people come out and say the world's going to end on such and such date. It just doesn't happen. So there are so many variables in all of this. We just have to be careful. And so when you're talking about disclosure, I'm going to go back to that, is like, let's see if we can have a reasonably good handle, at least, on some of these questions before we go out and start, making statements about what we know and what we don't know.
I agree, Jim. We should definitely be careful about making statements about what we know and what we don't know. And if I'm being honest, we don't know anything. And anyone pretending to think that they know doesn't know. If we're dealing with such a civilization or civilizations that are so advanced as being claimed, then how can we know anything? Literally anything. But based off the actions, if these actions are true, meaning if all these people are being abducted, again, against their will, okay? I don't know about you, but that's a threat. I don't know how more plain of a threat that is. In fact, I would say that's a high-level threat. I would say that's the highest level threat. You can literally be taken from the safety of your home against your will, taken up into a craft you know nothing about, prodded and poked and experimented on, implants put in, the stuff that they do, I'm not even going to get into here. So how is that not a threat? I mean, what are we talking about, right? If you're going to believe the abduction stories are true, you can't just dismiss them like it's nothing. That's so odd to me. I would love to talk to Jim Semivan and push back on this point 1,000%. What do we mean they're not a threat? They're a threat until we know they're not a threat. They're a threat by default. Even if they weren't doing anything, even if we just found out they exist, you would have to categorize them as a threat till you know they're not. How could you not do that? It makes no sense. There was no argument I've heard in this community about that made any sense why you would not categorize them as a threat. That's if they're not doing anything. But the things they are doing, not good. Ask someone who's been abducted if they think aliens are a threat. All right, I could go back and forth on this all day long. Let me know what you think in the comments. We'll see you in the next video, vetters. Remember, every day is a gift, y'all. Peace.